I am really happy to introduce you guys to our presenters for today. So we have with us Nikki Ross and Leah Marshall, and they're from our Counseling and Accessibility Office. So they're going to be telling you a little bit today about some of the services that they provide. So it'll be a great session for you guys to learn what's available there. So I'm happy to give whoever would like to start the hosting powers if you are sharing a presentation today.
Nikki, are you okay if I go first? Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Leah is a wonderful presenter, so this is exciting. Here we go. So you're all set. Take it away, Leah.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Laura. So hi, everyone. Thank you so much for attending today's presentation. As Laura mentioned, my name is Leah Marshall, and I use she, her pronouns. I am the Sexual Violence Prevention Advisor, which I'm going to tell you a little bit more about as we get into the presentation, and we will have time at the end for questions as well. So if you'd like to hold them till then I'll be able to answer those. So before we get into things, I think we should talk about what is sexual and gender-based violence and give a bit of a definition. So at Fanshawe, we use these terms because they're more of an umbrella term that encompasses many different acts. And so the definition we use is that sexual violence and gender-based violence is an act of aggression towards another person that's sexual in nature. And it describes any violence, physical or psychological, carried out through sexual means or by targeting gender or sexuality. So in Canada, the legal terms are sexual assault and sexual harassment. So if someone is charged with that crime, that's what the terms would be that would be used. But at Fanshawe, we use these terms because it's more encompassing, and we'll explain why. I have a quick video that I'm also going to share with you before I give you some examples.
All students have a right to be safe and free from sexual violence. Sexual violence is a sexual act of aggression against another person. At the core of all sexual violence is that the targeted person does not consent. Sometimes the act is physical, like sexual assault. Sometimes the act is verbal, like catcalling or homophobic slurs. Sometimes the act is virtual, like sharing naked or suggestive photos without someone's consent, or making sexually degrading or threatening comments about someone on social media. Sexual violence can include many things, but they have common themes of gaining control over the person and shaming them. Don't stand for sexual violence, and if you're experiencing it, reach out for support.
So I'm going to share a list of examples with you of what we would consider sexual or gender-based violence at Fanshawe. This is definitely not an exhaustive list, but it's to give you an idea that the violence doesn't always have to be physical. It can take many different forms. And as you're mostly aware, a lot of our lives have moved online in the last couple years, not just our schooling, but our social lives and different presentations and things that we interact with. And so violence can take place in many different spaces. And some examples of what would be considered sexual or gender-based violence at Fanshawe would be catcalling, sexually suggestive jokes, jokes about gender identification or sexuality, voyeurism. So this would be like spying on someone or recording them without their consent. Where I see this sometimes is someone's agreed to have some type of sexual interaction with someone, and the other person records it on their phone or their computer without asking for the person's consent, which is illegal and is a crime in Canada. Commenting on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or Snapchat or other online forums with any sexually degrading comments, language, or memes. Doxing. So we see this in cases of revenge porn usually. So I've maybe shared my nude images with my partner, and then we break up, and my partner then goes on to share those online with all of my personal information. So whether that be my email, my phone number, my social media handles. And this can obviously be very dangerous because it can put us in a position where we may be subjected to further harm from other people that have our information. So in 2015 in Ontario and in Ontario, Canada, it became illegal to share someone's intimate images without their consent. And so it's important to know that if someone's shared a nude or an image with you that's meant for your eyes only, then it is for you. And if you are to share that or show that to others, it is a crime. Transphobia, so misgendering someone on purpose. Rape is a common term that we hear, but it's more of a legal term that's used in the United States. Here, as I mentioned, we use the term sexual assault. Stealthing. So this is where I've agreed to use a barrier with my partner. So whether that be a dental dam or a condom, and the person then removes that barrier partway through the interaction without asking for my consent. Exposing genitals to someone without their consent. So as I mentioned, as everything's moved online, there's times where people have exposed themselves to other students or staff, and that's not okay in a public space or in an online space. Grabbing someone, touching them without their consent, sharing someone's images, as I mentioned, leering. So we consider this like the common term really being that you would stare at someone, staring at their genitals, or giving them the up and down, making them feel uncomfortable with your gaze. Unwanted advances, forced prostitution and trafficking, homophobic slurs, or any type of homophobia, or using a position of power or authority to coerce an individual into participating in sexual acts, or using the position to make sexually degrading comments, jokes, or advances. So at Fanshawe, it doesn't matter who the perpetrator is. It doesn't matter if it's another student or a staff member or a community member. We have supports that are available to you, and there's different options depending on who's perpetrated the violence. Um, Sometimes we see this in cases of staff members or faculty, so professors saying or doing things to a student. And so it's important for you to know that even if this happens and it is a staff member, you can reach out for support and you have options. So all people experience this type of violence, but there's definitely some groups that experience it at higher rates. And so sexual assault victimization is actually 5 times higher for women under the age of 35, which is important to us because that's a lot of our population. And between 15 to 25% of college and university age women will experience some form of sexual assault during their academic career. So that's 1 in 4, 1 in 5. The numbers are pretty high. And we talk about how normal this violence is because we want people to know that they are going to be supported and how we can change this culture, not just on campus, but in our community. Women with disabilities, Indigenous women, and women of color also experience violence at higher rates, and that's because of the intersection of racism and sexism, as well as ableism and sexism. And our transgender, genderqueer, and nonconforming students also experience sexual violence at higher rates than our non-TGQN students. So sexual violence is actually not about sex at all. Sex might be the weapon that's used to harm someone, but sexual violence is actually about power and control. It's someone deciding that they are going to do something to your body or say something to you and not take into consideration that you are the boss of you and you get to decide what you want for yourself. And so I'm going to also talk to you about where does this type of crime happen. There's a lot of myths and stigma that exist in our society that talk about stranger danger. And we do know that strangers do complete some sexual assaults, but majority of the time, sexual assaults happen in a private space like a residence or a private home. And someone known to the survivor, including acquaintances, dating partners, and common law or married partners, commit approximately 82% of sexual assaults. So sometimes when it's someone we know, like someone in our family or a friend or a partner or a partner's friend, it can be really hard to speak out or to say that this has happened to us because we're worried about what that will do to other relationships in our life. We're maybe also worried about will we be believed? And so I want you to know that it doesn't matter who has perpetrated this violence. The supports that I offer specifically are confidential. So a lot of times students will ask, if I come to you and I tell you something's happened to me, will you call my family back home? Or will you tell other people that this has happened? And in my role, that's not my job. My job is to make sure that you know what all of your options are so that you can make the choice that's best for you moving forward. So how can we help change this culture and how can we help support survivors? It's important to have conversations about the sexual interactions that we want and we don't want. Sex should be agreed upon, wanted, and fun. And pleasure is for everybody. We can also kind of push back on what we've been taught about sex, and maybe we haven't had any sex education. And so when you come to Fanshawe, there is actually many different programs and things that you can participate in to learn about these topics and also to better understand how to have these conversations with a partner. And also, if we witness some of these things, so you might see someone making a comment online in one of your group chats or in one of your forums that you're involved with related to school or maybe unrelated to school. If it's safe, we can call someone out if we see these comments happening. But if it's not, there's always people that we can reach out to. At Fanshawe, we have campus security services, which I'm sure you'll be learning about as well in this series. And they're available to you to share any of this information if you're worried about someone's safety. I'm also obviously another resource if you'd like to know what your options are without making a formal report to campus security, but you have many different options available to you at Fanshawe. You might also have someone that tells you that they've experienced this type of violence in your life. And so I want to give you just a few quick tips on how you can respond to someone if they've shared this violence with you. If someone tells you they've experienced gender or sexual based violence, you should listen to what the person wants to tell you. Even me, myself, in my role, I don't ask anyone to tell me the details of what's happened to them to be able to support them. We're not investigators. That's not our job. That's the job of the police or campus security. They're the ones that are going to look for all of that information, but we don't need all the details. And sometimes it can be harmful to ask someone for this information if they don't want to share it. So once you listen to someone, you can also ask them, how can you help? What do they need? Every person heals differently. We all are individual and want different things for ourselves. And so it's okay to ask someone, what do you need from me? And then hopefully after today, you'll know about some of these services that exist, like myself and counseling and accessibility services, that then you can say to your friend or your peer, hey, I actually know about a confidential resource on campus and I can send you in that direction and they can help you with your options. So the supports and services that I provide are varied. There's lots of things. It really, again, depends on what the student needs. We're all different, but I'm just going to give you a brief overview of what some of those look like. So students can reach out to me via email. That's the best way to reach me right now. We can set up appointments for in person or over Zoom or over the phone. And the violence does not have to have taken place when you were at Fanshawe as a student. It might be something that happened before you came to Fanshawe, and that's okay. Doesn't matter who did it. It doesn't matter when it happened. There's always going to be options available to you. For some students, it's helping with academic accommodation. So it's reaching out to your professors so that you don't have to tell them what happened in order to be supported by them. Sometimes it's going over information on reporting and legal options. Something that's come up in past sessions is some international students are wondering, will it affect my visa or my application for citizenship moving forward if I reach out or make a formal report to police that someone has harmed me? And the answer is no. If you're the survivor and someone has harmed you, it's not going to impact your proceedings with Canadian Border Services. We don't have any obligation to report to them that you've experienced violence. The person that hurt you, if they are also someone who is here on a visa, it would then impact them. But these are bigger conversations that we can have because every situation can be different. But just know that you reaching out for support is not going to impact you being here in Canada and being a student with us. We also talk about counseling options, which Nikki is going to talk more about today. We have a whole department of folks that are able to support you in lots of different ways. And so sometimes my job is just connecting students with those resources or in the community with counseling support if that's a fit that's better for you. Sometimes when the violence is physical, people do need medical care. And so we have a program in our community that actually supports students who've experienced sexual or gender-based violence and provides all the medications for free. So sometimes international students ask me, like, will I be able to access this through my health plan? Will I be able to get this? And there's lots of options and the things are provided to you no matter if you're international or domestic. So we can talk about those options because those are different for each person. Sometimes people experience sexual violence or gender-based violence at their part-time job. So if you're here and you're working in a part-time job or you're on a co-op and something happens, you might think, oh, it's my supervisor that did that, or it's someone that's in a mentorship role over me. And so I don't know what my options are, and I need that job to make money, to be able to live my life here in Canada. And so, just so you know, it doesn't matter again if something's taken place in the workplace or on your co-op. We have options for reporting that. Sometimes that looks like a human resource complaint, so going through the actual business, and other times our career and co-op office if it's related to your co-op. We also have a code of conduct system at Fanshawe, which is really about our behavior as staff and students on campus and how we should treat each other. So we all deserve to work and study and enjoy life and in a environment that's free from sexual and gender-based violence. And so if another student is the student that's harmed you, we have a process that we can go through if you want to make a formal report to campus security that may hold that other student accountable for their actions without going to the police. And for some students, none of those options fit, and that's okay too. These are just some examples of what that might look like, but we have many things that we can talk about, and it's going to look very different for each person. So all you need to do is reach out for those options, and I'll give you my email at the end. I'm also just going to touch briefly on some of the supports and options for sexual health that we have on campus. And so, something that I think is important to acknowledge is as students, sometimes there's financial barriers to accessing certain products like condoms or dental dams or pregnancy tests. We also have access to reusable menstrual products. And so, on campus, we have two sexual health vending machines. One in our student center across from the cafeteria or the Oasis, and one in our Falcon House residence lobby. These machines provide you those products that I just mentioned at cost. And so if you are looking to access some of these products on campus, you can find them in those two locations. We also offer different programming every month for survivors. And so one of these examples is trauma informed yoga, which you can do virtually. So even if you're still studying from abroad, you can still participate in these programs that are virtual. And so these things are always posted on the Fanshawe Student Union Instagram page, Facebook, social media channels, as well as our Here For You. So if you're looking for what these programs are, you can access them through there. And they're all free to you as a student. And just lastly, I want to end with just a small piece about consent. So, just acknowledging that when we get consent from someone, it has to be freely given. So, it can't be pressured, it can't be coerced, and it's reversible. So, I can change my mind at any time. It's my body. If I decide I want to do something in the moment and I change my mind the next second, that's okay. It's informed. So I know what I'm getting myself into. So we talked about the example of using a barrier like a dental dam or a condom. If I've agreed to that with my partner, then we're both informed that that's what the interaction is going to look like. And someone doesn't get to change that halfway through without your consent. It's enthusiastic. So we're both interested in what we're doing, and we're letting the other person know that we're interested. And it's specific. I just also, for those of you that will be with us on campus in the next little bit, I want to let you know that you might be using the bus system for your way to get around. So I want to talk about some safety on the bus. So students have told us that they sometimes are subjected to sexual or gender-based violence on the bus or while waiting for the bus. And so we've worked with our transit commission to talk about what are the options you have available to you, not only if you experience this, but if you see someone else experiencing this on the bus. And so on every city bus in London, there are cameras that record what's happening. And so if something happens and you'd like to make a formal report to police, they're able to pull this footage. You also can request a courtesy stop if you're feeling unsafe. So if someone may be following you or treating you a certain way on the bus, not just sexual violence, but any type of harassment, racism, any unwelcome comments, you can go to the driver and ask them, can I please be let off at a certain spot? Sometimes people also access this if it's really dark out. So early in the morning. So right now, like as Laura and I were talking about, the season change is happening and it's really dark early. And so sometimes at like 5 or 6 o'clock, it's pitch black. And so you might not feel safe getting dropped off at your regular stop. And so you're able to ask the driver, is it possible to drop me off closer to home? And they'll be able to talk to you about where they're able to do that. The other piece is if you notice something happening on the bus or you need help, you can go to the driver and they can actually call police and dispatch them to wherever the bus is. And so just know that the driver is your point of contact for safety on the bus. And so go to them if you have any concerns. This is my email, so I don't know if now would be a good time to take a photo of it on your phones. I'll also put it in the chat. But if you have any questions or you want to ask me about what services look like, I've just tried to fit a lot of information into a short time. I'm always happy for you to reach out, even if you haven't experienced this and you want to get involved in some of our programming or know what else is taking place at Fanshawe. Please reach out and we can chat about what that looks like. And thanks so much, Laura, for inviting me today.
Yeah, thank you, Leah. You've shared a lot of really interesting or really important information, and I think that students should feel very comfortable to reach out to you because you're a great resource. And would you happen to be able to send us a copy of that presentation?
I can send you links to all the videos that I used and the resources. So there is a sexual violence landing page on our website that has all of the videos and does go more in depth about some of the things that I talked about today. So I will also put that in the chat for everyone.
Perfect. That's great. And if you do need time to kind of think on some of this information again, we will be posting all of these videos, recording of this session today on our YouTube page. So sometimes if you need to hear that another time just to kind of get a better handle on those concepts, it's a great idea to just review the information and think about the resources that are available to you. Perfect. So we have the link in the chat there. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Leah.
Thank you so much. Have a good weekend, everyone.
Bye. So we'll turn it over to Nikki Ross now, and Nikki is going to share a little bit more information about our counseling and accessibility services. So I will make you a host here, Nikki, and you're welcome to take it away.
Great. Thanks so much, Laura, and welcome everybody. It's great to see such a large group here today. This is terrific. I always feel like Leah does such a fantastic job presenting and so much great information. She's a little bit of a hard act to follow. So I'm going to provide you some information today just around maybe a little bit about transitioning to school. You're getting lots of information from all of these sessions about supports and services to help you as you do that. And about our counseling services that we have available here at the college and some of our online resources as well. And I should have a little bit of time at the end as well. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take those too. So I'll start my screen share here. Are you seeing my presentation slide? Yes, thanks, Laura. I always feel I need to check in around that when I'm on Zoom. So as I said, I'm Nikki Ross. I'm the acting manager for personal counseling. And I'm just happy to be here today to share some of this information with you. So when we think about transitioning to school, we know that students coming to Fanshawe come from varied backgrounds. We have students from around the world. We have students of different ages. And some folks are coming right out of school. Some have spent time in the workforce before. So we think it's important to acknowledge that everybody is bringing a little bit of a different perspective. And so working to figure out what are the people and places and services that are going to be helpful to you is a process that's unique for every individual. So we're going to talk a little bit about what some of those are today, but I would really encourage you to spend some time later and think about, who are those key connections for you? Can you find, as you move into your classes, a couple of classmates that you can kind of align with so that, if you happen to be sick and you miss a day of class, you've got someone to get notes from, or that you can do some studying with, those kinds of things. And then what services do you think you might want to make use of or just learn about in advance in case you do need them? So some of the common challenges that students notice when they come to school. Expectations for performance and achievement. Every year I see students who have really high expectations for themselves, which is a fantastic thing and can also become a stressor. There are lots of new pressures associated with being in school full time. For students who have moved to Canada from somewhere else, that transition with changes in culture and food and the hours that you are awake and that you sleep in the day. So we want to just know that it's important to think about how do you manage your time and what helps you to manage your stress well. The other piece that has become really important is technology. We know now that we will work and do some school components online forever going forward. And so sometimes it's helpful to think about how will you integrate technology in a way that feels comfortable and helpful to you. So this might mean planning time to troubleshoot before your classes. It might mean purposely turning technology off at times that you're not needing to use it, or finding ways that you engage with it that are also helpful for your well-being and your stress management. When it comes to balancing life, balancing your personal life and the demands of post-secondary education can be really challenging at times. We know that we often think about, how do we fit in our family and our friends? How do we make time for ourselves and our own needs? How do we fit our academics and the needed study time in along with those? And often we see students also trying to manage work and co-op on top of that. So these are the things that we tend to think of as the components we need to balance in our lives. But what we sometimes forget about is our own health. And so I'm always encouraging students to make sure that you're checking in with yourself. Make sure that you're thinking about, how am I feeling? Am I sleeping? Am I eating? Am I able to stay awake during my classes? Am I feeling stressed? Do I notice tension in my body? Because those are our cues to let us know that we might need to do something that would be good for our own self-care, or reach out to another resource that could be helpful to us in doing that. And so that brings me to the supports and services that we offer through counseling at Fanshawe College. And so I'm going to spend a little bit of time on each of these areas today. The first being the WellTrack Self-Help App. So WellTrack is an app that is adapted to be unique to Fanshawe College, and it provides you with information and resources to help you manage your health and your wellness and your mental health. WellTrack is a free download to all students. You can find it on the Google Play or the App Store. And some of the things that you'll see there include links to important resources on campus. So some related to health and wellness, some related to sexual violence, which we just spoke to you about, others around safety and security. So those links are all for you to make use of at any point in time. There are also opportunities to just check in with yourself as you go through your day or your week or your month. And so sometimes it's helpful to us to do this just so that we can identify on the days that I was feeling well and happy and full of energy, was I doing things differently than on the days maybe that I was feeling more stressed or struggling a little bit more? And what can I notice? What are the things that have helped me to be able to cope well? And then you'll also find a number of courses and little self-help segments that will give you information on how to build your resilience and maintain your well-being while you're in school. And so sometimes these are nice tools. You may say, I don't really need to engage with a counselor, but I'd like some information. I'd like to figure out how to help myself manage my stress and anxiety a little bit better. And so sometimes these can be a good first step in addressing those. We also offer a number of virtual groups, and we have a peer support program that operates throughout the school year. So sometimes it's helpful to get support in a group setting with other students. It's nice to know that you're not the only one feeling the way that you're feeling, and to learn along with other students some of those skills and strategies that might be helpful to you. So I'll just highlight a couple of these. So Be Well is a 4-module series that helps students develop skills and strategies to cope with just everyday life stressors and manage their well-being. You can enroll in it by registering through Counselling and Accessibility Services, and it runs a number of times each term. So if you've missed one round, there will always be another round coming. The Mindful Awareness Skills Program is something that we're offering and is new this year, and it's aimed at helping students to learn how to enhance their mental abilities and decrease stress by being mindful of the world around them. And so again, we're looking at what can you do to develop some skills or to learn some new strategies so that during those times when you're working on an assignment late at night and you need to be able to de-stress a little bit, you've got some things ready to use that will be helpful to you. And then our peer support drop-in groups. So these are available to provide you with an opportunity to meet other students who have some experience at Fanshawe already. And it's a time where you can ask questions, get support and advice from other students who know what it's like to make that transition into school and to try and manage the demands of student life as a post-secondary student. So again, to register for any of those, you can contact Counselling and Accessibility Services, and I will provide our contact information at the end of the presentation. Personal counseling is one of the main services that we offer here at Fanshawe College. So often people seek counseling when they're experiencing distress that's interfering with some part of their life, which might be their schoolwork, it might be their work outside of that, sometimes relationships with roommates or at home. And it's a chance to explore those thoughts and feelings that you've been having and how you're coping with those. It's a time to be able to think about what's working and what's not, and sometimes come up with new strategies to help you address those challenges. At times, it's just helpful to have another person to provide some feedback and some reflection and some ideas for what might be useful during those stressful times. Sometimes this will mean meeting with a counselor for one single appointment, and you may get your questions answered and you may have your situation kind of resolved at the end of that. Other times you might see a counselor for more than one session, and you and the counselor would work together to determine what that looks like. What's important to know is that all of our counseling services are confidential. So sometimes students have concerns about whether their family members, whether it will have an impact on their visas, whether their teachers or professors will know that they're accessing counseling. And the answer to all of those is no. Counseling is a confidential service that we provide, and you always have an opportunity to speak with your counselor about that confidentiality and ask him questions that you do have. So sometimes we know that things escalate for students and they wind up being in a situation that becomes a crisis for them. So this might mean that they're having thoughts about harm or about suicide. It might mean that it's a concern they have for themselves or for a friend or a classmate or a family member. And so we want to always be sure that you have the resources that you need to be able to connect with appropriate supports if there is a crisis. So on campus, we have some same-day urgent appointments available for students who are on campus. Those might be in person or they might be virtual. We also have campus security available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on campus. And you can reach them by calling 4242 from any campus phone or 519-452-4242. And they're happy to respond. And sometimes it might even be that you have a question about whether something is an emergency or a crisis, and they're happy to help with that as well. For students who are off campus, we have the Reach Out 24/7 crisis helpline. And so their website is there. They have an online chat option available, as well as the 24/7 phone line. And this is again, a confidential resource that you can use any time of day. We also have the CMHA crisis services available at 534 Queens Ave. This is another 24/7 resource. So any time of day, any day of the week, 365 days a year, this resource is available for anybody on a walk-in basis. And of course, if there's an imminent emergency, if you have concern that somebody has hurt themselves or is going to hurt themselves, then you can call 911. Another tool that we've developed this year is the Student Mental Health Toolkit. So this can be found on the portal, your student portal, under Mental Health Toolkit. And when you click on it, you'll be taken to an area with a number of different resources, including wellness tips for yourself, strategies for supporting friends and possibly family members, some blog posts with information about well-being and supporting the well-being as a student. I just have one screen capture here from the toolkit because this is kind of the core of what we're looking at when we think about the Student Mental Health Toolkit. So what we wanted to do is provide something that would help students to know how to recognize, respond, and refer for either themselves or for someone else if they're struggling with a mental health concern. So when we talk about recognizing, we're looking at what are the signs or symptoms that you might notice in someone that would tell you they may need some support. So this might be things like withdrawing socially, having difficulty managing their emotions, maybe not sleeping or eating well. And then in terms of responding, how can I help? So we know that it can be difficult to know how to start a conversation or how to tell someone that you're concerned for them. So the toolkit provides just some little ideas and tips about how you can start that conversation and how you can think about supporting someone in a helpful and empathic way. And then when we think about referring, we think about who else can help. What are the appropriate supports? And so again, our counseling information is there. The information for students who are outside of Canada is there as well. And all of our additional online and community support resources are included. Finally, the other piece that's really important and that's included in the toolkit is self-care. And so you'll find this reminder about making sure that you're engaging in your own self-care in the toolkit, because we know that sometimes supporting someone else can feel stressful for us as well. And so we want to be sure that when people have done that, they're also thinking about what they need for themselves. And so it might be a little bit of quiet time. It might be talking to a friend or a family member. It might be reaching out to us as an opportunity to kind of check in and make sure that you're still coping well afterwards. The reason I also emphasize this piece, though, of the toolkit is because I would advocate that self-care is important throughout your time as a student. And so checking in with yourself occasionally to think about, how am I doing with these things? Do I have the routines to eat and sleep and get dressed each day and make sure that I am engaging with my studies and my friends in ways that are helpful to me? Are there things that I've stopped doing that were helpful to me that maybe I want to start trying to do again? And this can be as simple as making myself a cup of tea, So I really encourage you to spend some time and take a look at the toolkit. You can add to this list of ideas, of course, with things that you already know are helpful and supportive to you. Okay. And finally, I'm going to talk to you for just a moment about Fanshawe's Mental Health and Wellbeing Survey. So this is a piece where we are actually looking for your help. The Mental Health Commission of Canada has worked to develop a national standard for post-secondary mental health. And this is aimed at ensuring that colleges and universities are aligned with the mental health and well-being that is embedded in the post-secondary experience for students. So Fanshawe is working hard to develop our own tool that will be used to determine where we're doing well and where we could make improvements. But it's important to us that we have students as part of the design and the development for that, and that we have a diverse population of students to give us feedback and to help us think about how we're going to implement this survey tool. So in the next week, you will receive some information via email with a link for a session that will take place on Monday, November 22nd at 1 o'clock. We have room for 50 students, so the first 50 who show up will be able to participate in the session with us. And then what we'll be looking for is just your attendance to hear about this for about 30 minutes, and then some feedback to us. So we'll send out a list of about 5 questions and an opportunity for you to provide some additional comments to give us that feedback and let us know what you see as the things that might work well with the plan we've developed so far, and what else we might want to consider. I'm just putting that out there as something to be looking for in the coming week. And finally, as promised, our counseling accessibility services contact information. So you can phone us or email us. Certainly feel free to take a photo of this if it's helpful, but I can also put the information in the chat afterwards. Or you can connect with us through our website page on the Fanshawe College website. Okay. And I am open for any questions that anyone might have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nikki. And as I listen to everything you've shared today, I'm really just hearing that being successful in college life is really about balance and reaching out for the supports that you need, taking advantage of services, but also just being really self-reflective and thinking about what you need and how you can access those services.
Absolutely. And sooner is always better. So I guess that's another thing I say to students often is, 6 weeks from now, you might think, well, there was that lady in the gray sweater and she talked to us about coming for help. Maybe I need to think about that. When you first think about it, that's the time to reach out, right? We don't get prizes for holding out or waiting. So I always say, come and see us while it's a smaller issue or before it gets to become a bigger issue, because that's going to make it that much easier for you to get what you need out of that whole process, whichever of the resources you use, whether it's peer support, one of the groups, or it's personal counseling.
So we can open it up to some questions now. If you had any questions for Nikki about counseling services or any of the toolkits that she shared with us today, she'd be happy to answer any of those questions that you might have. I don't know, Nikki, did you want to share a little bit about accessibility services? Because that's also a component of
yes,
your
I can
office.
do that too. Absolutely. So accessibility services, for anyone for whom that might be maybe a new term or a different term, are services provided to any students who require accommodations. So academic accommodations, sometimes we get confused with housing accommodations. Academic accommodations because of a disability. And so that might be something like a physical disability. It might be something to do with mobility, maybe chronic illness. Also included in there would be learning disabilities, ADHD or ADD, autism spectrum disorders, and mental health diagnoses. So anxiety, depression, anything else that kind of falls under the mental health umbrella. And so we have, I'll actually put it in the chat. I don't know if I can remember the whole email address right off my head.
I can pop in some of those details, Nikki, for you.
Yeah, if you, Laura, if you're able to just put in the link to the early ID information.
No problem.
That's the first step for getting registered. So if you've received accommodation before, or if you think that you require accommodation for any of the things that I've just mentioned, you can complete our online early ID registration, or you can just email accessibility@fanshawec.ca, and we will get you connected with an accessibility services counselor who can talk to you about what your accommodation needs are, what that process is for getting accommodation, and how those accommodation needs are communicated to your faculty. So something else that's really important to know again is that your health information is kept confidential. So what's shared is what accommodations would be appropriate for you in your program or your course. And this is another situation where when we talk about confidentiality, information about having used accommodations does not show up on your transcript when you finish school. It doesn't show up anywhere on your visa. It doesn't impact you that way. But it can be a huge benefit if there are things that you experience that are barriers to being able to be successful in school. So that's just a little bit of information. Laura, thank you for putting that link in there. Sometimes I don't think of the whole thing right off the top of my head easily. Are there any questions? I can answer questions about that as well. I'm also conscious that sometimes counseling concerns and accommodation concerns are not things that people want to ask questions about publicly. I fully understand that. And so people can also either email the counseling inbox and just ask them to forward it on to Nikki, or you can use my direct email address, and I'll put it in the chat here as well. And I will get back to you usually within a day if you have any specific questions about our services or getting connected.
So we did have one quick question that was a follow-up from some of the information that Leah shared. We just had someone who was concerned about a night out in London and whether or not it's safe. So I don't know if you want to speak to that. That's also something we can address at our campus safety presentation, which will be taking place down the road. But what do you have any advice or recommendations for students if they're going out? How can they be safe?
So I think there are a number of factors, and Leah, she's already left, has she?
Yeah.
Okay. So I will do my best to do this justice, because I do think we see students who are impacted by concerns around safety often. And I think it's a really good question, especially if London is a city that's new to you. So a number of factors come into play here, right? Like I think having a plan for your night out is an important thing. It's a good thing. Know who you're going to go with, know how you're getting there, know how you're getting back. Think about, responsible use if you're using any substances, and how you're going to ensure that, again, you're getting to places and getting back home safely. I always encourage to talk beforehand with the people that you're going to be with about, is everybody staying together? Are there plans for people not to stay together? And if so, then what's going to help you to be able to be sure you get home safely? I think the question about is London a safe place to go for a night out? That's a tough question because there are so many variables there. I think what we know is that we have lots of supports and lots of services to help us stay safe. And I think when we talk about our campus security, they're also really willing to engage with us and just have conversations about how to do that. I quite often meet with students and we just do safety planning if we need to. And I would also say, if you have specific concerns prior to going out, that it is good to reach out to them and maybe talk about their advice and what they would suggest too. So I know that's not really specific. And I think, I'm always aware that, as students, there's a student experience that people kind of want to have. And so I encourage that. I think that's fantastic. And you can have some great life experiences that way. And I think it's important to just be wise and be safe.
Yeah, for sure. I think London is a safe community as long as you're sort of practicing safe behavior. So I think those ideas around making plans for going out and making sure everyone's on the same page with what's going on is really great advice. So there was a question, I think, Joel, maybe you're getting accommodations, so academic accommodations versus housing accommodations mixed up perhaps, but we did run our session yesterday, our Housing 101 session, so that is available on our YouTube page. So if you search for Fanshawe International on YouTube, you will be able to access the presentation from yesterday around on and off-campus housing. We also have the presentation deck from that one. So if you'd like a copy of that presentation, please feel free to email fanshawecares@fanshawec.ca. I'm not seeing too many other questions here coming up in the chat, but one thing, I've sort of been putting my presenters on the spot a little bit, but Nikki's great, so I'm sure she'll be happy to share this question. I've been asking our presenters if they have any good news stories or any good things that they've been seeing happening in their department or in the campus community. If there's anything that kind of sticks out as a success story that you can share with our incoming students that they might find inspiring for the upcoming year.
Oh, sure. I have, and I wish I'd added the slide actually. I have something that for our department is quite exciting this year, and that we've been really waiting for more in-person presence on campus, more students returning to campus to be able to talk about and share. And that is that we have a therapy dog named Hartley joining our team this year. Hartley has joined our team. He has been working on campus a little bit already. And I wish I had a photo of him to actually show you right now. He is a lovely Black Lab Retriever cross. He's just very sweet. And so he's part of our team now, and he works to help students if they're feeling anxious or stressed, if they just need some help to kind of get grounded. And so he's part of our counseling services. Hartley will be out at more in-person events as they become available. And I think that's what I've been really excited about, being able to work on campus a fair bit this fall and seeing different events that the FSU is putting on and seeing events that we've been able to have in response to sometimes difficult things, but that are supportive for our students has been really fantastic. And I think what I look forward to is being with students more. And like I say, we get to bring Hartley places now. So students, if you like dogs, he will be someone that you'll be able to meet on campus at our different events. Maybe we'll get back to having some of our chill lounges and stress management days and things like that.
Yeah, the chill lounge is always very popular. So if you see people petting bunnies and blowing bubbles, please feel free to join that group, because it's a really nice opportunity to take a little break and take some time for yourself. And again, kind of focusing on that self-care piece, because it's important to your academic success. So Radhima, I see you have a question there again about housing, and I'm happy to help you with that. So again, if anyone does have any questions related to past sessions, I'm just putting my email here again. This connects you with our team, Fanshawe Cares at fanshawec.ca, and we can absolutely help you out with those questions.
Laura, I've got a photo of Hartley here if I can share it. Is that
We'd
okay?
love to see it.
Okay. Actually a slide I used for a different presentation, but so this is Hartley and Lindsay. So Lindsay is the counselor who works with Hartley most of the time. As you can see, he's a really chill guy. Super friendly, loves people, and also just super calm. So there he is.
So hopefully everyone will get a chance at some point to come meet Hartley. Very cute.
Yeah. Watch for him at events for sure.
Awesome. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, I'm just going to quickly share my screen just for one moment, because I do want to welcome you all to our events for next week. So we can see my screen okay here? Okay. There we are. So as you guys know, our Fanshawe Care sessions will be ongoing up until November the 26th. So lots of great opportunities to learn about what's available here at Fanshawe, and even in the City of London as well. We do have a few other people from the City of London, from the London Economic Development Corporation, and from Tourism London joining us, so you can learn more about the city before you arrive. On Monday, we'll be joined by the Fanshawe Student Union, and that's a really great session because it's an opportunity to meet some of the members of our student government from our Fanshawe Student Union. More Care 101, health insurance tends to be a very important topic for students. So if you do have any questions about health insurance, a representative from More Care will be joining us. As you learned in our first day one of Making London Home, our Fanshawe Cares live series, we talked a little bit about the library and how it's a beautiful renovated space. So we're going to have some of our librarians joining us. More information about job searching and virtual networking, and that is in partnership with London Economic Development Corporation and our career services team. Fridays seem to be like feel good Fridays. We have our counseling team today, and next week we'll have our wellness center. So we do have a beautiful wellness center space, and we'll have a couple of people from that area joining us to talk about using the gym and taking advantage of the programming that's available. Student safety on campus. So we'll be going over not only sort of general safety protocol, but also the really important information around COVID-19, our vaccination policy. So day 10 on November 22nd will be a great day to attend. Tourism London on the 23rd will be a very fun one. People who are interested in part-time work will be joined by our international student immigration advisor to talk about working while studying on November 24th. On the 25th, we'll be having our IT services telling you a little bit about free downloads that are available as Fanshawe students, and how to make use of our IT service support desk, and Fanshawe Online, which is our online coursework platform that each one of you will be using. And finally, I did have a few questions in the chat today about a general kind of Q&A, and that'll take place on day 14. So we'll be doing an AMA or an Ask Me Anything session. So if you have questions at any of these sessions, please make note of them. You're of course welcome to email us at any time with those questions, but if you'd like to attend that last final session, that's where we'll clear up any final concerns. So we're just at the 10:30 mark now, so we'll wrap up our session for today. Devin, thanks for asking this question. You missed yesterday's session. You are welcome to visit Fanshawe's YouTube page And we've created a playlist of all the previous sessions. You're also welcome to email us again, fanshawcares@fanshawc.ca, and we can provide you with copies of previous presentations as well. So thank you so much, Nikki, for joining us today and providing such wonderful information. And thank you to Leah, who joined us earlier. But I really hope that you'll all take away from this that there are lots of supports available here at Fanshawe to help you be successful. So do take advantage of those. And with that, I wish you guys a really great weekend and a great day. Bye, everyone.